Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back for another Walking Dead video. Today I wanted to do another ranking video. I'd done one previously for moments that I thought were some of the best of 2024, considering we only got the couple of spin-offs to really work with. But this one, I wanted to go over the villains. Mind you, this is not every single villain that's within the Walking Dead, Prime show, the flagship, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But this is just a ranking of some of the villains I've thought were either some of the worst villains we've ever seen, down obviously to the very worst that we've ever seen. And so this is just my ranking. You may have your own. You may include some people that I don't. But anyways, without further ado, let's jump into my ranking of some of the worst and some of the most awful villains of the Walking Dead flagship show. Starting off this list with the Wolves. Now, the Wolves, we saw little bits and pieces of them sprinkled out the last few seasons right before they showed up. We saw them in Noah's community. We saw wolves not far. Then we saw the bits of people being hacked up in the woods. Then we saw that one woman, I think, was hanging from a tree. And then they eventually showed up and they wreaked havoc on Alexandria. And with that said, yes, they were pretty awful in the sense that they're pretty evil. They were these type of people that just kind of reverted back to the most primal parts of the human mind or whatever, living out there in the wild, feeding on people that are weaker than them, and just treating the world just like kind of one big playground at the same time too. And we had all of our little random wolves. I had the lead wolf. I can't remember his name, but their ideology was very just weird. And so that just kind of leaves them ranked as dead last as far as the the most awful or the most dangerous, I guess. Yes, they were dangerous, but they were ultimately flawed in the sense that they still just ran around and attacked communities just for the sake of doing it. They didn't really have any goals. I mean, they had the people that I guess would go after supplies or whatever, but it was just basically all about the attack to wipe out a community or whatever. Moving on to the next one on my list, I have Pope as the next one. Now, Pope, he had very limited screen time, and just his whole following of the Reapers and everything, and just everything that they stood for was very awkward for The Walking Dead, and just they were weak sauce as far as being villains in The Walking Dead. Pope was very awkward and just, all about this is God's plan, he's being the chosen one, and this and that, and just it made him very unlikable. And I just could not stand him. So what he got is exactly what he deserved. But then you had Leah turn around and completely betray Daryl, which was really annoying too. That whole kind of part of The Walking Dead, as far as whatever season that is, I want to say it's probably season 10. That is something that I will probably never go back and watch again. It's a particular piece of story that I just don't care for. I didn't care for Lee in the beginning. She was okay, but then she just kind of went off the deep end. And then we had Pope and the Reapers come in, and it was just very weird, and it didn't work for what they were trying to do. Now, the next one here, we have Pamela Milton of the Commonwealth. Now, the thing that made her dangerous was the fact that she still kind of thought in the sense of how the world used to be. That's what made her dangerous. She thought she was better than other people. She thought she deserved more than other people, and she had all these ulterior motives and everything, and that's what ultimately made her not the worst villain, but not the best villain either. She was just kind of right there in between. And even though she didn't ultimately die, she was still one of those people that if she were to catch a stray bullet to the head, I would have been okay with it, because she was at her core kind of an awful person. She treated people like they were less than nothing, like they didn't deserve as good as she had, and that was one thing I just really couldn't stand about her. Now, next on this list, should not be any surprise, Sebastian, her son. Sebastian, his first words out of his mouth, you just knew this kid is a piece of crap. He is someone that I think kind of mimics the comic book counterpart of Herschel. If you don't know, Herschel in the comics, kind of towards the end, he is living in the Commonwealth, Maggie's in charge, and he's just very entitled and just very spoiled, and he's just a piece of crap little kid. And it's someone that Carl actually doesn't like, which I really liked, because we all know, if you read the comics anyway, so spoilers if you haven't, Carl lives to the very end, and he is, the rest of the story is being told from his viewpoint, but that's neither here nor there. But Sebastian, just treating people, again, like they are less than nothing, that he is so much better than everybody else, and just very entitled, has no idea how to really survive, because he's put to the test and everything. He got exactly what he deserved. I mean, in every sense of the phrase, he got exactly what he deserved. He was a full-blown piece of crap, and I was so glad to see him go out the way he did. But next on the list, we have Joe from the Claimers. Now, the Claimers were just another group of kind of opportunists in a sense, where they had no loyalty to each other whatsoever. They had this whole system where whoever claimed something first, that's theirs, and they just had kind of that system set in place where if someone claims something and then someone else tries to come along and say they claimed it first, or they try to take it and kind of violate whatever code they had, that person was punished. So there was no caring or anything amongst the group. And so that's kind of what made them kind of in the middle as far as really crappy villains, but really good villains in the sense that they aren't completely savage and they have somewhat of a system, but there's no loyalty there. There's no real plan in place for what they do. They are day by day, and they just would victimize anyone they came across, as we saw within The Walking Dead with how they victimized Rick and the way they were going to just torment and just torture Carl and just sending Rick off that edge and really tapping into that primal side of his brain or whatever. And they ultimately got what they deserved too, particularly Joe and just the last couple that really survived of that group. Now, the next one on the list, this one can probably be debatable as someone that may not be a villain, just someone that is opportunistic and just is kind of out for themselves, but they are a villain in the sense that they are a bad villain and a good villain, where it's kind of right there in the middle. But what makes them a dangerous villain is the fact that they are a coward. And I'm talking about Gregory. Gregory was a prime example of someone that was just completely full of crap, someone that stood on other people's shoulders to get where he was, took credit for things, made it look like he was doing more than he actually was, and he had no loyalty at all. He had no loyalty to the people that he was supposed to be taking care of there at the hilltop, and he would bow down to Negan. And that's what made him kind of the perfect little whipping boy for Negan, because he was so terrified of Negan, but he was dangerous in the sense that he couldn't be trusted, and he was a giant coward, so you never know kind of which way he was going to swing as far as his loyalties to whoever. But ultimately, his loyalties were to himself. He was out for himself. He was in that community and put himself in that position of power and just stayed there because no one was willing to step up and tell him that you're wrong, you can't do the things the way you do, and you're not looking out for our best interests, until Maggie came along. And that's why he had such a problem with her, why he tried to kill her on multiple occasions, and ultimately, and I know I keep saying that, again, got exactly what he deserved, and he tried to cry and weasel his way out of it. But the thing is, he would have done it again. Absolutely. He would have gone after somebody else. He would have victimized somebody else. Or in the case of, I can't remember his name, gotten someone else to try and kill Maggie for him, getting someone else to do something for him down the road that would benefit him only. Now, moving on to the next one. Now, this one's kind of a popular one. This is way back in season 4 where we had Terminus. Now, Terminus, as we know, was something that started out as one thing but turned into something else. Now, the leader of that group, Garth, as we know, he was a victim of circumstance. They started out that community realistically as somewhere people could find a place to be safe. And then someone come along, a group come along, took advantage of that, and they had to turn into something else just to survive. They had to turn into the worst versions of themselves to get back at these people that tortured them, kept them prisoner, assaulted them in every sense of the word. And so they had to be that in order to survive. And so from then on, they never trusted anybody ever again. And that's just what led to everything that happened to him, everything that kind of karma in a sense that got back to him, where he captures Bob and he cuts off his leg and he cooks it after Bob reveals that he's been bitten. And that was just karma kind of coming back to bite them in the ass. And again, someone that just, his end was exactly how it was supposed to go. He got that blade to the head because of all the choices that he made, all the innocent people that he sacrificed or whatever, because he thought he was protecting his community, that he couldn't trust anybody, and that's just got him where he was supposed to be. Now, this next one, I could say, is one of the more dangerous of the villains because of the fact he was flat out psychotic. And I'm talking about Simon. Now, Simon, we know of the Saviors, he was Negan's second in command. He was a psychopath. He took great pleasure in holding his boot on people's throat in the metaphorical and literal sense, where he was perfectly content in his position, where he held the fate of multiple communities in his hands, along with Negan and the rest of their little lieutenants or whatever. and he was just a full-blown psycho. He took great pleasure in torturing people, killing people. He had no conscience in that sense. So the apocalyptic world, the post-apocalyptic world, he was someone that was built for that. He loved it. He was someone that probably was very low on the totem pole when the world was still running as it was. Someone that probably didn't move too high up in the management sense or anything like that within the workforce or what have you. So when the world ended, he's probably someone that really loved it and he was glad it happened. Now moving on to the next one, we saw his decline where he probably started out and had pretty decent intentions, and then it just kind of went all downhill from there because of the state and the world and everything it turned into, because of Rick ending up in the hospital and him having to go out and rescue Lori. And of course, I'm talking about Shane. Shane, he's someone I would have hoped that he would have not gone down the path he did, but it was just a matter of opportunity. It was the world. Another person just like Simon, who was built for a world like that, who didn't want to follow rules. He wanted to give in to his worst instincts and his worst compulsions or anything like that. He was just that type of guy. He wanted to be in this world. He wanted to take what he wanted, and he wasn't going to let anybody stand in his way, even his best friend. So that was unfortunate that it worked out for him the way it did, because he's someone, John Bernthal, the actor himself, who is just an amazing actor, and I really enjoyed his time as Shane, and I wish he would have gotten more, but considering that he did get more time within the series than the character ever got in the comic book, but he's just someone I wish that they could have done something else with. But that was, I think, the tipping point with Rick, where this is the world that we live in now, that we can't even trust someone I consider my brother or my best friend. That's what the world is going to do to people now. That's the type of people that we can kind of expect to find out in the world. Aside from our handful of good people that are just trying to survive, that are just trying to look out for others, we can expect to find this type of person who's very opportunistic, who's very sadistic, who can't be trusted. He's got ulterior motives and just the whole package. Now we got Alpha coming up next on the list. Alpha, she is just Looney Tunes. We saw in the flashbacks and everything, she was an abusive mother. She was just a one sided kind of person who saw everyone around her as weak. And this is just another person that was built for this world. As the world went to crap and she found other ways to adapt, other ways to survive, she found it best to go back into this kind of savagery state of mind, roaming the earth or roaming the area with the walkers and whatnots, and finding the best way to camouflage, as we all seen throughout multiple points in The Walking Dead, where if you got walker guts on you or something like that, you camouflage yourself within any type of herd situation. So Alpha was just another weird character, and she had kind of the right idea, kind of that pack mentality, but she also didn't care about anybody but herself. That's just what it came down to. She was out for her, even though she had Lydia and everything. She probably would sacrifice her in a heartbeat if it meant that she survived, and she would probably move on very quickly. Now, moving on to the second to last one, we have the governor. Now, the governor, or Philip, as we came to know him, he was just another guy that's probably started out with good intentions, trying to keep people safe and whatnot, and then just saw it as this is how he's going to take advantage of people. This is how he's going to get people to trust him, because we saw the way that him and his little posse or whatever, the way that they survived was taking other communities out. And this, we saw it with the little National Guard or Army soldiers that were out in the wild and everything. They took all them out, took all their supplies and all their guns and whatnot to add to their stockpile. And he was someone that was also, I think, as time went by, became very unhinged, because obviously, with him keeping his daughter as kind of a walker pet, he was not mentally healthy whatsoever. He was not, he was kind of in between, as far as he was the type of person that was meant for this world, but the type of person that was very much hanging on to what the world used to be, and he couldn't accept things as they were. And just another example of someone that's picked a fight that they couldn't finish, which is kind of the case with a lot of these villains. But now we're getting down to the number one, and this one should not be any surprise. We got Negan. Now, Negan, when you think of Walking Dead, you think of Negan, and he's about the most exciting thing about The Walking Dead right now, considering the Dead City spinoff, and Daryl Dixon's just not living up to the hype, or whatever hype they can manage for that show. But Negan is someone that has become very exciting. As we know, he started out as probably the worst villain in the sense of the worst slash best. He come in showboaty as all hell and immediately took out two of our favorite people within the Rick group, and just established his dominance. This is how it's going to be. You're going to work for me, and if you don't, I will kill other people that you care about. And he had the numbers, and he had the influence, and he had people that feared him, and just people that had to worship him so they could survive. And so that's what made Negan very dangerous and all around powerful. And we saw as he lost his kingdom, the saviors and everything, that this was someone that also kind of adapted to the world as it became. He did not want to be this person, but he became this person because he lost that one thing, which was his wife Lucille, who was kind of his anchor and kept him grounded and kept him kind of with that moral compass and whatnot. But after she died, as the result of people holding him hostage, it was at that point he's like, fuck it, it's all done. You're dead, and I'm going to take care of everybody else that had anything to do with it too. And then when he saw that influence or that gratefulness in people's eyes that he had come across and everything, I think that power just completely went to his head, and that's how he became the Negan that we know. But fortunately, as he lost his empire and whatnot, he kind of started to regress back to that guy. Yes, he still made very poor decisions, but he became someone that people could trust again. People could look at without, second guessing his intentions, and he turned into someone that they considered a part of the community. And even though right now he's kind of off in his own world and he's getting sucked back into that kind of old school Negan persona, we can probably still expect him to be a decent person, because I don't think he's going to let himself get kind of seduced by that old lifestyle and everything. Even though there's going to be people whispering in his ear and whatnot, he saw what it led to last time, and so he's not going to let it happen again. He's not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize other communities, probably. But he's probably going to see, as he brings these gangs of New York together, what type of people they really are too. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there, because he's there because he had to rescue Herschel. He had to get Maggie and Herschel out of there. This is kind of his sacrifice and everything. So I'm really excited to see how that all plays out with this next season coming up, hopefully within the next few months. There's still no official release dates, and there's talks of it coming out maybe in May or sometime this summer, but we'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my very long list of the Walking Dead villains, and that's not even all of them, as we all know, but that is just my ranking. If you have something completely different, please be sure to leave your ranking down in the comments and whatnots. Leave a like, leave a comment about anything you want, and of course, consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it. I've hit some milestones here lately with the channel, and I'm just really excited to keep going with this little adventure, and I want you to kind of join on the ride with me. So until next time, guys, take care. Bye.